What's up, guys? It's Jacob from the Degenerate Gambling Life, and we have another great episode for you today. We're going to be talking about the top wide receivers in redraft fantasy football. At one, we have CD Lamb. He was wide receiver one in 2023 and wide receiver five in 2022, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be a monster again this season. Dak is going into a contract year with a lot to prove. Mike McCarthy has to go all out to keep his job, and I think the Cowboys are going to be throwing the ball to their best playmaker as much as they can. At two, I have it a little different than most. I have Justin Jefferson. He was the wide receiver four in points per game last year, and it doesn't really matter who his QB is, he's still going to produce. And I would argue that his QB situation is better than it was post Kirk Cousins last season. Sam Darnold should be serviceable and good enough to get him the ball. And when they do turn the reins over to JJ McCarthy, I think that he will have a good connection with Jefferson as well. At three, I have Tyreek Hill, who's finished as the wide receiver two in fantasy football the last two seasons. There's no reason to think that he won't be a top five guy again this year. He is 30 years old now, but I think he is still going to be an elite player. At four, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's coming off a wide receiver three season, and the year before that, he was wide receiver seven. He should only continue improving, and that Lions offense should only continue putting more faith in him. Jared Goff just got a huge contract, so they're comfortable with him throwing the ball a lot, and Amon-Ra will be the recipient of most of those targets that come his way. So I do like him a lot this season. And at five, I have Puka Nakua. He was the wide receiver four as a rookie. And I see no reason why he won't be a top five guy again. Matt Stafford was rolling last season, and I think that this offense will continue to be great this year, and Puka will be the beneficiary. At number six, I have Jamar Chase. I'm a little lower on Chase than others. I just don't like his inconsistency. He was the wide receiver 11 last year, and he's been a top 10 guy most of his career. But he is inconsistent. He has huge games where he puts up 50 points, and then he has games where he puts up 2 points. And that is frustrating as a fantasy owner if you're investing a first round pick. I like him as a second round pick, so I won't be getting many opportunities to take him. But he's my number six guy. At seven, I have AJ Brown. He's been wide receiver five and wide receiver six in the last two seasons, respectively. And he's a guy I like a lot this season again. I don't see why the Eagles' passing game would be any worse. It should be a little bit better, even. And I think that he could score a few more touchdowns if the tush push becomes less effective with the absence of Jason Kelsey. At eight, I have Garrett Wilson. He's never cracked the top 20 in fantasy football, but I think Aaron Rodgers will change all that this season and make him the elite wide receiver that we've expected him to be. Now that he has an elite quarterback, he's been working with Zach Wilson the last two seasons, so this is a big improvement for Garrett. At number nine, I have Brandon Ayuk. He's had two seasons in a row where he's finished as a top 15 guy in fantasy football. He's an elite wide receiver, and even if he gets moved, I think it could be better for him because he should have a higher target share on a different team where he doesn't have so much competition. And I think that that would be a huge benefit for him if he goes to a situation where he can get 130 or 140 targets as opposed to somewhere closer to 100 with the 49ers. And at 10, I have Mike Evans. He was the wide receiver seven last year, and he should keep up his production. They're bringing Baker Mayfield back, and this offense should continue to improve. I'd like the Buccaneers. They're in a weaker division, and he should have a good season this year. Then at 11, I have Devontae Adams. He's been a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy in each of the past four seasons, and I think adding Gardner Minshew will be good for him, as he did make Michael Pittman a top notch guy. He loves to feed his number one receiver, and I think that's good news for Adams. At 12, I have Chris Olave. I think this is the year that he finally makes the step into the top 15 after finishing wide receiver 16 last season. If Derek Carr can improve at all, this should be good news for Olave, and he should make it into the top 15. At 13, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. Harrison Jr. has is one of the top prospects we've seen in a long time, since probably Calvin Johnson. And he's in a good situation with Kyler Murray, where I think he'll be a beneficiary of a good offense, getting drafted in one of those rare instances where a top five guy goes to a good situation, and I think he'll do very well. At 14, I have Drake London. He was only the wide receiver 37 last year, but with Kirk Cousins, I think he's worth the risk in the top 15 because he could become a top 10 guy. He has that kind of talent. So definitely roll the dice on Drake London in the 14 to 15 range. And at 15, I have Nico Collins. He was the wide receiver 12 last year. Obviously, with the addition of Stephon Diggs, that's going to take a hit to his target share, most likely. But he's such an elite talent. He's still the alpha in Houston, so I wouldn't mind spending a pick on him if as the wide receiver 15 off the board.
Today, Jordan and I are going to debate who the first quarterback should be off the board, whether it's Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to have the pleasure of going first and taking Josh Allen. Let's just start by listing a few facts, my favorite thing to do. Number one, Josh Allen's been the number 1 or 2 quarterback for the last 4 years in a row. It's mainly because of his rushing upside, and as he showed last year with double-digit rushing touchdowns, that's not going away anytime soon. We're used to seeing rushing quarterbacks fade off quickly, but Josh Allen's pretty much an anomaly. He kind of is a modern-day Cam Newton, and I do think he will keep the rushing up. Even when Stephon Diggs fell off the second half of the year, Josh Allen's fantasy numbers remained elite. So he didn't need Stephon Diggs to be elite. He's got Dalton Kincaid, he's got James Cook, they drafted Keon Coleman, picked up Curtis Samuel and a couple other receivers, and I think his passing numbers won't fall off much while his rushing numbers will remain the same. I think he's a good bet for 400 plus points and to be the top quarterback again this year.
I get it, Kevin. Josh Allen is good, but guess who's gone? Stephon Diggs. You know Patrick Mahomes' number 1 guy, Travis Kelce, he's still there. Plus they added Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy. This offensive scheme is tailored to Patrick Mahomes and passing the ball. He's going to put up passing yards. He's going to put up passing touchdowns. He had an off year last year. Still pretty good. And guess what? For leagues you get punished for INTs, Mahomes ain't throwing as many as Allen.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
Okay, everyone, before I jump into my hot takes, I just want to tell you, if you did not know, we're down to single-digit weeks before football. Thank Lord, I'm ready for football and fantasy football, of course. Now, hot takes, they are all going to be about the MLB. First, the Texas Rangers should be sellers at the trade deadline. They got super hot last year, and I really didn't think they'd win a World Series, but their pitching staff just is old, not sustainable. They never fix their bullpen. They do have the pieces for an offense. I think sell what you can. Just keep creating the pitching, which has always been the story for the Rangers, but they should be sellers. Next, the Yankees. They need to go all in, opposite the Rangers, to get their first World Series since 2009. All right? The front end of the starting pitcher is pretty good. I really don't think that's what it is. I'd beef up the bullpen a little bit and just look for super utility guys, some bats, but overall the Yankees should go all in. Finally, the Astros. They're no longer contenders. Thankfully, the cheaters are finally done, and they need to start tearing down and start building for whatever their future may be. All right, Jordan, take it away with your hot takes.
Great takes, Josh. My hot takes are coming to you guys this week via Wimbledon. That's right. I got some tennis rolling through because I figured one tennis wasn't enough for you guys. On the women's side of things, we had Iga Swiatek, world number 1 overall on the women's game by a mile. She's out. Second overall ranked Coco Gauff. She has also been eliminated. So everything is up in the air right now. I'm rolling with Italian Jasmine Paolini. She was in the French Open finals. I think she gets it done here at Wimbledon. On the men's side of things, we have interesting development as the world's number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all still in it. They're all vying for that championship. And we have Sinner, Alcaraz, and Medvedev on one side of the bracket, Djokovic and Zverev on the other side of the bracket. I think it comes down to Djokovic over Sinner in the finals. Jacob, what you got for us?
Thank you, Jordan. And my hot take for the week is that Team USA's men's basketball team will not win gold at the Olympics in Paris. I know the field is probably a big underdog, but if you kind of look at the state of the NBA and basketball in general, it is becoming a more world-dominated game. We're seeing a lot more players come from Europe to play in the NBA. Most of the top picks this year were from France. So the way I'm looking at it, it seems like the world is catching up and that gap between the USA and the rest of the world is closing. And I think this may be the year that another country snipes the U.S. from that gold medal and the U.S. ends up going home with a silver or bronze medal from Paris this year.
All right, for all you poker fans out there, you know that the World Series of Poker main event has commenced earlier last week. My hot take of the week is that an unknown is going to win the main event. It happens very frequently. Even if they are a professional player, they're going to be an unknown. And, I'd love to see Phil Ivey win it, ever since that Moneymaker bad beat. But an unknown's going to take it this year.
Poker hand I played at TCH in Austin, Texas. In this hand, three players limped. The small blind completed, and I checked in the big blind with pocket twos. The flop came ace deuce seven, so we flop a set, and now the small blind bets $5. I call because there's a promotion for quads of the day, and on this day, if you make quad twos, you get paid out $2,000. So I just call, and now the MP next to act raises to $55, and it folds back to me, and I'm loving life and make the call. The turn comes the Miracle 2, so we make quads, and I'm trying to hide my excitement, and I check to the MP, and he checks back. The river comes a brick, so I have no choice but to go all in. So I go all in for $240, and the MP snap calls, and we are good with quads and win the promotion as well. This was a poker hand I played at Shuffle 512 in Austin, Texas. Action folded to me and I raised to $20 with Queen Jack offsuit in the cutoff, and only the straddle made the call. The flop came Ace King 4 Rainbow, and at this point I started to recognize that I'm probably going to have to go for a triple barrel bluff here on this board. So when it checks to me, I bet 15 and he calls. The turn comes a brick 9. He checks to me again, and now I bet $50, setting up a river pot-sized jam, and he does make the call. The river is a 6, and when he checks to me again, I decide I have to stick to my plan. I'm going to try to get him off an ace. Since I can have all the strong hands on this board, I can have aces, I can have kings, I can have ace king, and he really can't have those holdings since he would have 3-bet them pre-flop. So I go all in for 170, and he tanks for about 2 minutes and finally makes the call with ace 10, probably realizing that's one of the best hands that he'll have in this spot, and we lose the pot.
Okay, jumping into a few poker hands. We were playing 1-2 at Windstar. Limps to me, and I look down at ace 10 of hearts on the cutoff. I raise to 13, and we get four callers going Texas multi-way. The flop comes the 10 of clubs, the 6 of hearts, the 5 of hearts. Iron Gun now donk bets for 20. I flat, and so does one other player. The turn comes a 3 of clubs. The Iron Gun now bets 35. And at this point, I think they're trying to name their price for some sort of draw they're on. And I flat just kind of keep their bluffs in, and the other player folds. The river comes a 4 of spades, and the Iron Gun now bets $80. I think for a few minutes, but I stick with my read. I think that they missed all their draws, and I call, and I show my ace 10, and they show 9-8 of hearts, and we win. So again, their story just wasn't making sense. With the flush draw out there, if they flopped something massive, they would have been pushing really hard to get me off of it. So that's what ultimately led me to making the call on the river at top. Even though I had all the hearts covered, it was just one of those things where their bets felt more like naming their own price, and on the river they pumped it up whenever they missed. So that's how that hand turned out, and luckily we won. Next poker hand, we're still playing 1-2 at Windstar. Again, limps us on the cutoff, and we look down at 9 deuce of diamonds, and we raise to 11. We get four callers again. The flop comes the ace of diamonds, the king of diamonds, and the 9 of spades. Checks to us, and it's a good flop for us, so we bet for $27, and we get two callers. The turn comes the queen of diamonds. Text us again. We want to bump it up because we do have a vulnerable flush, and we make it $62, and only the under gun calls. Now the river comes the 5 of clubs. The Iron Gun leads out for 100, and I'm not sure what they're doing, but I'm not just calling 100. So I go all in, and I love it whenever they go into tank. They're thinking, and they finally make the call. They show Jack 10 offsuit, and I win with my 9 deuce of diamonds, which this kind of leads me to another point. The player was a good young player, still learning some things, and whenever he was calling thinking he had the queen, maybe some other backdoor outs, he didn't have a diamond, but his outs weren't clean because I had the flush draw and he had no diamonds. So if you're going to make that move that he did, which is calling, you need to make sure your outs are clean. If not, he would have been better off just folding on the flop and he would have saved, a lot of money. Instead, the worst card came for him where he made his straight and it was just bingo for me. I had the third nuts at that point. So again, situation like that, if you're going to draw to a gut shot, thinking the reverse implied odds, you need to make sure you have clean outs.
Welcome to Miller Time. I'm Kevin Miller with the Degenerate Gambling Life, and on today's episode, I'm going to discuss 5 rookies that I'm avoiding in redraft leagues. And keep in mind that this video is being recorded before training camp begins, so I do reserve my right to change my mind once I have updated information. But as of now, here's my opinions. The first guy I'm avoiding is wide receiver A.D. Mitchell. I do like his profile. He kind of has a DK Metcalf profile, but he's the second or third receiver on the Colts. Anthony Richardson hasn't proven that he's going to be able to support multiple receivers. I think that the Colts are going to run a run-heavy offense with Richardson and Taylor, and I don't see the Colts wide receiver 2 or 3 being consistently fantasy relevant. It's not a player you want for redraft. And again, this is for redraft, not for dynasty, so please don't take these opinions and formulate them into dynasty. The second player I'm avoiding for redraft this year is Ricky Pearsall on the San Francisco 49ers. A late first-round pick. I do like him for long-term and for dynasty, but I'm just going to remind you guys I'm focusing on redraft. And he's the third wide receiver, realistically the 5th option on that team behind CMC and Kittle as well. Unless multiple injuries happen, Ricky Pearsall is not going to be fantasy relevant consistently this year, and you're not going to want him on your redraft team. The third player I'm avoiding in redraft is Trey Benson on the Arizona Cardinals. I do love Trey Benson. He's got a Breece Hall profile, but James Conner isn't going to get usurped unless he has an injury. James Conner is going to be the primary ball carrier. He's going to get 20-plus touches, and Trey Benson is going to be limited to very few opportunities earlier in the year. If James Conner gets injured in the middle of the season, it opens up that window for Benson to maybe take over. But you can't bank on injuries in redraft. You got to go with the consistent proven guys. The fourth player I'm avoiding in redraft is Xavier Legette on the Carolina Panthers. He's buried on the depth chart behind Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. And while I do think Adam Thielen is going to fall off a cliff this year, I still don't think, even if he did, that Xavier Legette is going to be fantasy relevant. Bryce Young has to prove he can throw for a ton of yards and touchdowns. And on top of that, they did draft a rookie last year in the first round. Or sorry, not first round, but second round, named Jonathan Mingo. And he's not, suddenly evaporated. But I do think by the end of the year, Legette will cement himself as the wide receiver 2 on that team behind Deontay Johnson. But I don't think that position on that team is going to bear you much fruit this year. Finally, the 5th player I'm avoiding in redraft, the 5th rookie I'm avoiding in redraft this year, is running back Audric Estime on the Denver Broncos. Javonte Williams is fully healthy and over a year removed from his major injury. On top of that, Jaleel McLaughlin's getting a ton of hype and praise in camp. So I do think that Estime's opportunities will be very limited, barring an injury to Javonte Williams. I wouldn't touch him in redraft. It's not even worth it. These are the rookies I'm avoiding in redraft this year, and this is as of before training camp. Let me know what you guys think, what you agree with, disagree with, and as always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It's free to do so. It supports the channel and helps us continue to make these awesome videos for you. As always, thank you. Miller Time, out.
Soccer hooligans.
Another edition of the Adam Minutes for you guys, and we are focusing on Copa America semifinal games and European Championship semifinal games because these 2 tournaments are coming to an end. This Sunday, July 14th, we're going to have the European Championship in the afternoon, followed by the Copa America Championship at night. So those are going to be some great games to look out for. And also during the day is going to be the Wimbledon men's final happening. So keep an eye out for that stuff because we're going to have a great day for sports on Sunday. Getting back into the semifinals, we had one semifinal take place earlier today. At the time of this recording, it has not happened yet, but this is going to be Spain, who is unbeaten in 5 games. They've won all 5 games against France, who has yet to score a goal from open play in their first 5 games. They're the first team to ever do that in the history of the tournament. It's pretty crazy. So anyways, I know France is who I'm picking to win this tournament, but they're coming up against the hottest team right now, and we'll see how France does. Tomorrow in the European Championship semifinals, we have the Netherlands versus England, and I know I've been beating down England saying they're not going to win it. They shouldn't have been advancing. However, they're coming up against a Netherlands team who has also not been very exciting. So I could see actually England eking this one out and setting themselves up for a potential win in the final, regardless of me just saying they're not going to do it. All tournament I've been saying, England's this, England that, they're not going to do it. They could surprise me and end up in the final here because Netherlands have not been impressive either. As far as the Copa America semifinals go, right after this episode, well, not right after this episode, but 7 o'clock Central tonight, we have Argentina against Canada. This was the original matchup that opened this tournament when Argentina beat Canada 2-0. So Canada's hoping to get a little rematch. Argentina is who I picked to win this tournament. We'll see how they do, but I expect them to beat Canada comfortably again. In the other semifinal for Copa America taking place tomorrow night, we have Group C winners Uruguay versus Group D winners Colombia. That should be good. I'm picking Colombia on that one just barely. Uruguay's got a great team, and they're playing well. I like Colombia versus Argentina in the finals. We'll see what happens. I hope you guys have a good week.
Time for a little fantasy baseball. We're nearing the halfway point. It's right around the All-Star break. So let's jump into it. First, Ben Rice, New York Yankees. All right. The guy has come up and been hot. We love him because he gives you flexibility at catcher and first base. So you really like when a guy can bring you that power bat and he has the flexibility of catcher. He's available in 42% of leagues still, but that's going to keep shrinking. He's been player number 79 the last 2 weeks. He has 7 runs, 4 home runs, 11 RBI, and a 263 average. Next, Jake Irving, Washington Nationals. He's a starting pitcher. He's available in 27% of leagues still. He's been player number 35 for the last month. He has 3 wins, 30 Ks, just a little under a K per 9, a 2.03 ERA, and a .94 whip. Love those numbers. Now, someone for you to look to add, Clayton Kershaw. All right, Los Angeles Dodgers. His starting pitcher is available in 46% of leagues. Reason why I bring up Kershaw is he just did 2 simulated innings games over the weekend, and when he pitched, he's still a top 15 player. The guy, when he's on the mound, will deliver. So if he's available in one of your leagues, scoop him up. Or the All-Star break, I'm sure they were ramping him up, and it looks like he's on target for the end of July. So scoop up these players if you can.
Thank you to all those who made it to the end. If you did make it this far, please give us a like or subscribe because it really helps the channel grow. We will be in Las Vegas, and you can see the dates right over here on this side. It's going to pop up over there, and we are going to have a meetup game when we're out there and a fantasy football draft. So please come join us. Message us if you're interested. We also will be doing a fantasy football draft in Austin. We are determining the poker room that we're going to partnership with now, but we will be doing a fantasy football draft then as well in July. So please come on out and say hi. We have merch, and we look forward to meeting you all there.